a guide to core exercise for beginners. I'm going to be talking about 4 things that you need to know. You can see them on the screen. Number 1, there are levels. Number 2, get in touch with your muscles. Don't just perform the exercise. 3, start simple. And then number 4 is build core endurance, strength, and stability. What do I mean by there are levels? Well, as you can see, we've got a pyramid on the screen here. So if I just draw a couple of wonky lines across. So what we can see here is we've broken it up into 3 parts. Now this doesn't mean there are 3 parts, but what it does show is that there are stages and levels to how you progress core training. Certainly for beginners, if you want to move up through intermediate and advanced. And with regards to my 12-week online program, this is essentially everything in this tutorial is what I'm trying to teach you through that program. So what we do is we've got a foundation here, and that foundation needs to be endurance and stability. So we build that as a foundation. Now this would be described as a general foundation. There's not a great deal of specificity to it. We are just trying to build general core endurance and core stability. What we can then do is move up into strength. And I'm going to explain and go a little bit deeper into what these are and how these work in a later slide. But again, this would be a general strength. What would then happen is when we get to the top is we would be looking at some sort of sport specific or event specific or activity specific type of core training. But what we need first is a basic level of general core endurance, core stability and core strength. That's what the 12-week program is there to do. Essentially what we're trying to do through that 12-week program is move you from here to here. So possibly not all the way up, but into the core strength. So we start off endurance, stability, and then we build you into the core strength as well. But we're talking about general core strength. And again, as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit more about that in later slides. But for now, we're going to move on to component number 2. And it is get in touch with your muscles, don't just perform the exercise. Because what most people assume is that if they are performing the exercise, therefore the muscles are working. This is partly true, but it's not completely true. So an example, now this doesn't apply to everyone and it maybe not apply to you, but when I get some people performing a plank, for example, what can happen is they can experience muscle fatigue in the lower back. So if I get that feedback from someone, what I will say to them is just try and overly engage or overly brace the abdominals. We'll do the set again, and I'll say, how did the back feel? Either they didn't feel it at all, or it was just offset to later on in the set. So what that's telling me is that they are in the position of the plank, but they are not necessarily engaging the muscles at the right time for that exercise. So what's happening is load is being spread elsewhere. So with regards to the muscles that we need to be engaging, and again, for certain exercises, you will have to enhance different areas of the body. But what we've essentially got are the obliques and the rectus abdominis. Now, this is essentially the abdominal wall. What we then have over here is we've got the lats, the traps, and the rhomboids. So what we've got here is the anterior and lateral portions of the core, and then we've got the posterior portions of the core. And then finally, we've got glute max, glute medius, glute minimus, and the other external rotators as well. Now, what's important here is it's creating one unit out of all of these different individual muscles. So we brace the abdominals, we have the lateral and the anterior portions of the core engaged. What we then get here are obviously the posterior, but what happens here is we also tension the thoracolumbar fascia, which is here. How that works is if we engage the left latissimus dorsi, it goes into and across onto the right glute max. So we get extra tension through here and extra stability through here. The same obviously applies to the left glute across into the right latissimus dorsi. How we do that is essentially we squeeze the glutes, so we squeeze the buttocks, and we press the shoulders down into the rib cage. To engage the rhomboids and the traps, we engage, or we bring the shoulder blades closer together, and that essentially will lock down the core. Now, depending on the exercise, you will have to do greater portions in certain areas or certain muscles, and for other exercises it will be different. So we have to understand that. But essentially what we're trying to do is engage the muscles rather than just performing the exercise. Number 3 is starting simple. Now, this isn't something that most people like to hear. It basically means we need to be able to build not only the endurance and stability as a foundation, but we need to build engaging the muscles as a foundation as well, which is the component number 2 that we just talked about. And it is much easier to do in simple exercises like the plank and like the side plank. So if you are a beginner, it's important to start here. The reason I say it's important to start here is, and the reason they are simple exercises, is because we are holding a posture, and we are engaging all these muscles that we talked about: the abdominal wall, the lats, and the glutes. So we're able to do that without having to move many joints, or to move any joints really, because it's a plank where it's a static hold. When we get up to this type of exercise, which is a reverse chopping exercise, I'm pivoting on my foot, I'm rotating my hip, I'm flexing my shoulder whilst maintaining proper posture of the spine and engaging all those muscles that I've just said to engage. So there's 3 joints to think about, there's the spine to think about, and there's all the muscles to think about. So it's much harder to do in this type of exercise, which would be described as a complex exercise, than it is to do in a simple exercise like the plank or the side plank. So what we're essentially doing, if we take that metaphor again of that pyramid, or that sort of theoretical example of a pyramid, we're starting with simple exercises down here and moving up to complex exercises up here. So once we've mastered the endurance, the strength, and the engaging of the muscles, we can then start introducing and layering on top of that the movement of joints. So we're not only training the body, we're also training the brain to be able to cope with that. So when you go out into the world, or when you go out into your sport or your event or whatever it might be, it's very unconscious. So we're doing this consciously in the gym, and then moving into the, let's just say, the unconscious environment, which is the sport, which is you're more focused on the outcome rather than the position of your body. But we're building that systematically in the gym. So when you go out into the arena, the event, the stadium, whatever, it's already there. It's logged. It's unconscious. And when you go out, you just end up doing it. And the body's going to be in a much better place off the back of that. And finally, component number 4 is endurance, strength, and stability. So I've mentioned all of these previously, pretty much all the way through. We need to build in a progressive, logical manner. What we're building is endurance and stability first. So that is the ability to hold a posture or a position whilst offsetting fatigue. So we need to be able to hold that longer. This is something that's fundamental to the online course, the 12-week program, which is not only building the duration of the exercise, but also therefore building the duration of the workout in itself. So we're building that from the start as we go. What we also do is the ability to coordinate muscles, which is the stability. So that's not only consciously coordinate them by bracing the abdominals and fixing the latissimus dorsi by pressing the shoulders down, but also encouraging balance and then coordination with that balance to get the unconscious proprioception happening whilst you're performing an exercise. And that's done with certain exercises which we haven't got time to go into here. But essentially, that's what we're building. Then as the program progresses, we start building in the strength portion of it, which is the ability to apply maximum force. Now, we're not moving into maximum force during the 12-week program, but we are going further, and we are using certain exercises, and the way we use certain exercises, to compress the core to encourage greater strength and the ability to hold it against higher loads. So, as I've mentioned, what we are trying to do with all of these different components is build them in a logical fashion. And what I've tried to do in the 12-week program is put that together in 4 workouts over 2 weeks, and then basically progress that every 2 weeks for 12 weeks. So you essentially get 4 programs every 2 weeks, with the goal of trying to build the endurance and stability early on, and then as you progress through the course, not only the endurance and the stability, but then adding in the strength to that as well. So what we're trying to do is not throw you in at the deep end, we're trying to get you in at the shallow end, so you can then progress up to the deep end, which is the core strength. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of, as a beginner, what you need to be thinking about, but also how a program can be and possibly should be structured. If you want to get involved in the program, just click the link below. You'll go through to it, you can enroll in it, and you can get started today. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Chris Fold Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.